If the entire burden should be on the state government, what exactly is the role of the Federal Ministry of Water Resources? Because we know that year in, year out, there is a huge allocation to the ministry.
I have said so. Our mandate is to deal with policy issues, and we'll also go to the extent of intervening where, because we know that, for instance, dam construction is a very expensive thing. The federal government has built so many dams everywhere, and that's evident. There are more than 200 dams in this country, and we still have, as I'm talking to you now, we have over 40 dam projects ongoing in this ministry. And there is no dam that is built that is not, whose main purpose is not water supply. We build the dams, and for years they remain fallow because the rest of the deal, which requires the states to do the treatment plant and the distribution, they do not invest money to do that. And there are states that have been lucky, maybe because of whatever relationship they have with the federal government, that the federal government went to the extent of not only building the dams, but also built the treatment plant, which is not really our business. And in some cases, even went to the extent of building some portions of the transmission line with an agreement with the state, or built a complete plant 100% and handed over to the state just for them to operate, to buy the diesel, to put on the pump operators, the treatment plant operators, and they're not ready to do it.
You keep building dams, and you said that the federal government has built 40 dams, knowing fully well that the state governments may just not cooperate or are very much likely not to cooperate, and you still went ahead. Isn't this a waste of resources?
That is the point. Under my watch, it will not continue, because now we have to have a concrete agreement with the states before we can do it. But dams are not only built for water supply. I say purposely, the main priority is water supply. But if they don't drink it, people were giving licenses now to people to do aquaculture in the dams because we can't keep them, idle or unutilized. So we have aquaculture, we have irrigation on some of the dam projects, and then when they are ready to do the water scheme, they do it. And that is why a lot of these dams are silting up, because they have not been utilized properly. But to say, to think that federal government can go down to the level of managing water schemes for the states, no, that's not going to happen. It's really not our business.
Now, you've made hard declaration that there will be no abandoned water projects under your watch. So what are you doing to ensure that there wouldn't be this trend under your watch?
I can tell you right now, there are a number of states that we are collaborating with. They have understood that they are ready now to finance part of the completion of the project. Specifically, we are discussing with Ogun State, we are discussing with Katsina State on some of their projects. They have agreed to take certain portions to complete on their own while we pursue certain portions, so that we can partner. So, like I say, I'm not condemning all the states, but there are some states that are quite active and ready to and really fulfilling their own parts of the bargain. But there are many more that are not doing it. They are not necessarily engaged with the federal government, but even on their own, as it's a primary responsibility for them, they are not doing it. And we are the ones that go to the international community to answer on behalf of the country.
Just as the Vice President advocated now, how can we achieve an effective synergy between all tiers of government in providing adequate water supply and sanitation to Nigerians?
We are ready at federal level, but the states have to have the political will to be part of the game. We have brought in we are doing this synergy. That is why that policy in 2000 came into being, to have that synergy. It has not been working. So we are looking at it again.
Now the country is grappling with a very disturbing statistics of 29% sanitation in a country like Nigeria. That's very disturbing and very unpleasant. So what is responsible for this, and what can be done to bring us out of this reality?
We, at federal level, we have made a commitment to the world that will end open defecation by 2025. But it's not the Ministry of Water Resources that is going to end open defecation. It is the state government that should mobilize the people.
When you throw all this burden on the state government now, When you look at countries like Rwanda, there is a strong sanitation culture, and that all this credit goes to the federal government in Rwanda. So why can't we have a similar political will coming from the top, coming from the federal government?
There are certain regulations that are the exclusive reserve of the states of the federation, and they are the ones to make the laws. Ours is to try to cajole them, to advocate, to educate them, to sensitize them. And that is what we're doing.
Now, exactly a year ago, you came out with a grand plan of a 30-year water supply in a country that Nigeria will be achieving 100% water supply in the country. Now, realizing that a huge responsibility in all this scheme lies on the shoulders of the state governments. Now, is this a faulty plan?
The states have 100% responsibility to supply water and sanitation to their people. We are talking about financing. We said federal government is willing, if a state has a project, federal government is willing to contribute 30% maximum to that project if the project is viable, if the federal government is convinced that that project is good and has the resources to finance it, it can finance it up to 30%.
With the state government's responsibility now, does this jettison the 30-year grand plan?
No, our grand plan has already taken into consideration that those states are involved. And that is why the PWASH program, for instance, has a condition, has a part of the protocol of PWASH is that the states must subscribe to certain conditions before they can, it's conditional.
Now, does this set the tone for a review of the current status quo in terms of the revenue sharing formula?
You see, whatever you want to call it, whether it's revenue, whether it's structuring, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is, do they have the political will to provide 100% access water supply to their people? That is the point. No matter how much you give any state, if they don't prioritize water and sanitation, they will not get it. We're asking them to make, water is life. Please prioritize water. That's all we are saying.
Before we wind down this conversation now, we have to look at the current flooding in many states. You've made strong advocacy in some states like Benue that people should stop building along water channels now. But the ugly reality is that there is water everywhere, but none to drink. So what can be done to take us ashore from this ugly reality?
Population is increasing. We are not investing. We are not planning. There is even the planning of water schemes should be done together with urban and regional planning. Simple things as clearing, drainage, and building on water courses, abusing town planning regulations. That is what brings about all these things. So it is up to the state. They are the ones that have the regulatory agencies, the environmental protection agencies, and the planning control authorities. They are the ones to enforce and stop these people that build on water courses, and which leads to all this loss of life. Nature is nature. It's, when it comes, if you are standing in its way, it's going to devour you. Simple.
Looking ahead now, what can be done in terms of achieving an immediate term solution?
We want our state governments to have more political will to invest more money in water and sanitation. If they do, the federal government will also come to support them in any way we can, within the limits of our resources. And we are mobilizing the international community, we are mobilizing the development partners to also expand their contribution, to increase their contribution to water supply and sanitation. But they will not have the incentive to do that if they don't see us striving and making efforts to do it on our own. If we strive, then they will come in and support us. And finally, to say also that state government must come to the realization that they cannot really manage their water agencies. So let them let go. Let us have some kind of step-by-step approach. Commercialization, management contracts, eventually leading to the privatization. For the the consumer, it doesn't matter. I think I believe that if this water is available, the service is regular and efficient, they will be ready to pay for these services. So if we improve the service, we inject money, state governments and local government invest more money to improve what they have now and put a good mechanism for revenue generation and so on and so forth for managing and operating the schemes, then I think that's the solution.
The Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, thank you so much for making our time to be part of this episode of Question Time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Benga.
And that's it on this episode of Question Time from Channels Television. What's your take on the efforts of the Nigerian government in providing potable water for Nigerians? Send us a comment on our social media platforms. Join us next week for a fresh episode of the show. Many thanks for watching. I'm Benga Ashuru. Bye for now.